Day 2 is in the books here. We just finished with 2 rehearsals of my piece Aysheen, and they also of course played the Tchaikovsky Swan Lake and the Sibelius Violin Concerto with Hilary Hahn. I want to show you guys first how much time I got on my piece today so you have an idea of what to expect if you're ever in a situation like this, or if you just want to know how this thing all works. So I actually wrote it down right here in the score. Today is October 18 and I had my first rehearsal from 12:18 on the dot till 12:30. So the very first time I heard the piece, it was just one through, straight through, 12 minutes. And I was really excited because I was able to hear the entire piece straight through without any break, without any stopping. Nobody was confused. So that was really great, actually a really good omen. Not omen, maybe a good sign. Omen is a bad thing, right? A good sign of things to come. Of course, there are a lot of issues. That's to be expected when you have an orchestra sight reading a brand new piece of music with all these kind of extended techniques and so on. But to have a run through, straight through like that was amazing to hear, especially right before lunch. Okay, then we broke for lunch and we came back at 1:30, and they're very prompt actually, this orchestra. We actually started with my piece at 1:31. We went from 1:31 all the way to 2 o'clock. The entire day, if you add it up, we did 12 minutes plus 29 minutes, so call it 41 minutes. And tomorrow will probably be around the same, probably be around 40 minutes. So this is totally normal for a 10-minute piece to have about 80 minutes of rehearsal. So you got to be very, very pointed with what you want to do. I want to start out with the really good things because there are a lot of really good things. So the very first thing is this bass drum thing. At the very beginning of the piece was just freaking incredible. All I asked the bass drum player to do was make it sound like a heartbeat, and somehow he managed to do it. There was an additional thing or technique he had to do on the bass drum to make that kind of 808 synthesizer sound with a completely acoustic instrument. Number 2 was the small tam-tam and the large tam-tam steel wool sponge technique. That worked really well together because what they did was they actually took a small tam-tam like this and a large tam-tam like this, and they put them on top of each other in the very center of the hall behind all the brass. So you get that kind of breathing sound coming straight from the center right at you. And the way they did it was really smart because they had the 2 tam-tams right on top of each other, so it can be one person playing both. And honestly, I was really happy with all the percussion. Pretty much the first time through, all the rhythms were pretty much accurate. They were sounding the way that I wanted them to sound, which was really helpful because it helped everybody else kind of coalesce around the percussion. So that's a helpful tip, I think, that when you're orchestrating especially and you want these loud, big sounds, don't forget to think about the percussion. The percussion are not an afterthought. They are part of the texture. Another really amazing thing that came out of this second rehearsal, especially the 29-minute rehearsal, was that we figured out how to do all these melodies in the strings, especially the violins. The violins are all playing this like high C half sharp microtone, and then they proceed to play this very long melody with all sorts of grace notes and glissandi and so on. I remember I had to stand up and make this proclamation basically that all the grace notes had to be as aggressive and as fast as possible, and all the glissandi had to also be as fast as possible and connect to the very next note. It's not like a new music glissando. To me, a new music glissando is like if you take a half note here and then let's say a quarter note here, and then you go D, it takes up the entire duration. I wanted a glissando that sounded like this, D. I wanted it really fast at the end and aggressive and drastic like that. So all the ornaments sounded amazing. The last positive thing I want to say is that measure 200, we have this huge A harmonic series chord, and it was really amazing because all I had to do really to make them have it sound the way I want it to sound, which is like this really kind of hard whole note that tapers off, is all I had to ask them to do was add an accent. So right now there's just a tenuto marking on all of those notes, but all I had to do was just say, hey, can you put a little accent on it? And after they did that, the sound of this chord completely changed. I actually didn't have very many accents in this piece. I usually use tenutos. If you want something a little bit heavier, it's okay to put an accent on the string. It won't sound as strong as putting an accent on a woodwind or brass instrument, for example. So that's something that I learned today. So when I was talking to the conductor, we decided that we were going to have 2 main projects for tomorrow's rehearsal. The first one is we need to figure out how we're going to agree on all these airless bowing sounds that happen in the beginning of the piece and at the end of the piece and really all throughout the piece. So what really is happening is we're trying to figure out how to unify this bow sound where you just take the hairs of the bow and you play it on the bridge like this, and then a down bow sound where you take the hairs on the bow here and you play it on the body of the instrument. instrument. Now, not everybody is doing it exactly the same way. We want to figure out, well, if everybody was playing it exactly the same way, are we going to A, hear it, and B, is it going to make a big difference to the texture of the sound? So this is going to be our first project for tomorrow, so hopefully tomorrow I'll have an answer for you on that front. The second big project, I would say, as part of our probably 30 to 40 minute rehearsal tomorrow, is this big section of heartbeats, I call it. To me, it sounds almost like a heart attack in some ways because there's so many heartbeats happening at one time. This heartbeat section wasn't really quite together. It's very difficult. There's quintuplets everywhere, and there's like this kind of built-in rallentando, even though the beat is staying the same. So this is actually very difficult to do. The nice thing, though, is the percussion are doubling all the string parts. When they go to play the piece tomorrow, they'll, oh, those percussion players are actually playing the same exact rhythm as I am. Let's see if I can just match them. And that way, the subdivision of these quintuplets is not going to be as difficult because they're already getting that from the percussion. So that's going to be our second big project for tomorrow. So I'm really excited for that. So I'll check back in with you tomorrow.